Hi, hello everyone. It's so amazing to have you all here. We are here in the side event of the ECOSOC Youth Forum of 2025. We are here with the team of IOY, the International Organization of Youth, Tierra Nuestra. We are working here on this side event to talk about youth at the forefront in this amazing side event that we call Root in Resistance, Ecofeminism, Science, Multilevel Governance, and Collective Care. This is, this side event was organized by many amazing organizations such as International Organization of Youth, the Environmental Affairs, Tierra Nuestra, UN Science Group, Working Group, the Black Indigenous Liberation Movement, Red Adolescentes Movimiento por sus Derechos, and we are here on Wednesday, 16th of April, in in this amazing space that offers the ECOSOC Youth Forum. But I would like to start this side event talking with you about where are we coming from, okay? Because I think that in these scenarios, in these spaces, it's very vital that we understand where are we uh, grounded here, where are we stepping before we start talking. Because since 2019, the civil society unit of the Department of Global Communication of the UN, Habitat, and now it's UNIOM and UNEP, have always collaborated with a team of IYC, which is a youth-led 501c organization based in New York City, to organize 8th edition of the International Youth Conference, we call IYC. And the amazing part of IYC is that it's designed by young people for young people. IYC aims to educate youth on global issues and challenges, inspiring them to voice their perspective and take action to achieve the sustainable development goals, or well, some of you may call them SDGs. So how does IYC come from? So it was born from a call to action at the 68th UN Civil Society Conference, UNCSC, in Salt Lake City, Utah, in August 2019, which saw significant youth participation. And following this, motivated youth launch to launch IYC, with of course support of the civil society unit of UN Habitat and IAAI, to better engage young people in achieving UN goals by 2030. And something that International Organization of Youth does is empowering young people to engage with global issues and challenges, you know, by fostering their voices and their action toward achieving sustainable development SDGs. And it tries to be a platform for education, dialogue, and collaboration. We aim to inspire and equip youth to become proactive agents of change in their communities and the world. And at AOI, we try to be the bridge and destroy the gap between youth and United Nations, ensuring that young voices resonate and stay and leave an imprint within the UN corridors. And mostly, we are right now in the ECOSOC Youth Forum. So we are actually doing that. So that's amazing. But yeah, mostly youth worldwide have shown remarkable awareness, creativity, willingness to act, from developing innovative solutions and leading impactful movements. They are at the forefront of climate action. That's youth, but yet their potential remains untapped due to the systemic barriers that limit their participation in global socio-economical governance. And we think that by recognizing this urgency, the environmental affairs team based in Latin America, which name is Tierra Nuestra, it is our earth in English, was established to serve as a platform for connection and strengthening youth efforts in addressing global and socio-environmental challenges. So Tierra Nuestra aims to be a platform for connection and strengthening, but facilitates as effective articulation in a joint effort to address global socio-environmental challenges through intersectional, participatory, and holistic actions. Our mission is to make visible and amplify common agendas by acting as a strategic bridge between various key sectors through three strategies. So, of course, monitoring, negotiation, prior consultation, and political advocacy, lobbying mostly, and connecting within the global to the local. So if you are interested in working with us, know more about us, you can find us as Tierra Nuestra in Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel, and we are the official environmental affairs team of the International Organization of Youth, IOOY. So yeah, we are this platform. So what are the objectives of this side event that we're working on right now? Resilience Resistance tries to do three things by bringing you these amazing women which I will present you here. We want to promote gender equality in social environmental struggles. This side event will try to highlight the role of women and ecofeminism movements in defending territories, leading climate action. We will try to talk about how to integrate ecofeminist perspective and youth leadership and multi-level governance into climate strategies to address interconnected challenges, and mostly highlighting the importance of collaboration between women, youth, and marginalized communities in shaping inclusive climate policies, which has been a very, very important topic in the last 5 years. We want to emphasize the importance of youth-driven scientific innovation and research in addressing climate change and advancing sustainable development goals by fostering youth-led science for sustainable development, bringing these to the table to encourage the inclusion of young voices in scientific and policy discussions to ensure this perspective are diverse. And mostly we can see climate action from a gender perspective. And mostly to talk about how we can share methodologies for conflict resolution. These spaces are not trying to resolve everything, but we can see how together we can find a way and perhaps a path through collective care and community resilience for a key to understand how sustainable development can happen. So by working, of course, this under the SDG 5 of gender equality and SDG 17 partnership for the goal, I would like to present you these amazing women that will be our speakers today. I think there is a black thing in middle of the screen. Yes. Thank you. No, it's okay if you can now.
Pausé tantito la.
So these amazing young women, I will present them to you, which some of my friends and some are women I really look into. They're amazing, powerful, and mostly empowering. So we have Melissa Jimenez, who works in the Jungo Science Working Group. She's a Mexican planetary health scientist from the Faculty of Medicine of the Autonomous University of San Luis Potosí, and she is a master's student of Sustainable Resource Management from the Technical University of Munich. She's specialized in science of climate change and waste management. Her main topics of study are environmental sciences and the impact on the ecosystem health, including human health, eco-anxiety, carbon footprint of laboratories, and sustainable research. She has been involved in environmental causes since she was 8 years old, which, oh my god, that's a lot. Promoting and defending Vaquita marina, an endangered porpoise species from the Gulf of California in Mexico. She's a member of the Max Planck Sustainability Network and collaborator of the health working group of UNGO, Children's and Youth Constituency of the United Nations, and has collaborated in diverse projects with the IPCC, WMO, WHO, and local NGOs in Mexico, Germany, and other countries. So, Melissa, you're amazing. We also have Joyce Mendez. She's the UN Youth Climate Advisor from, she has been working there from 2023 to 2025. She's a migrant and a social entrepreneur and a climate advocate focused on the nexus of water, food, energy justice. Joyce co-founded several local and regional youth organizations, including the Moena Viasa Environmental Education Observatory in the Latin American Observatory of Geopolitics and of Energy, and the Binational Youth Collective of the Paraná Basin 3 from the Cultivation Good Water Initiative, a recipient of the UN Water Best Practices Award in 2015. This has also supported Paraguay and National Conference of Youth since 2016 and the National Forum of Water and Youth, and continues to be active in UNGO, the Climate Reality Project in America Latina, SDG 7 Youth Constituency, and the Youth Adaptation Network of the Global Center of Adaptation. What a woman, please. Joyce, you're amazing. I have known you for a couple of years. I'm really happy to find you and have you here as well again. But let's not forget we have another two amazing women. We have Lucia Ixchu. She's a Kitsch Mayan woman, an artist, a cultural manager, she's a singer, a community journalist, and she is as well an indigenous feminist and architect. She was born in Totonicapan, Guatemala. She was a pioneer and a creator of work in art and climate crisis. Is an activist at the age of 11 in art and culture work. She became an activist and journalist for the October 4, 2012 massacre in the Alaska Summit, a massacre that the Guatemala Aid Army committed against the indigenous people of Totonicapan, leader of the student movement indigenous coordinator of BILM, and a coordinator of international advocacy at solidarity festivals. I believe that Lucia has such voice, such a strength, an experience that is so important to share here. And as we will listen to her talk about her work and how she sees women in the perspective of being an indigenous woman working in international politics. And we also have Micaela Esquevis. She's a dedicated activist who began her journey at age 14, advocating for legal abortion in Argentina and co-founding a support network for survivors of gender-based violence. She's also a member of Jóvenes por el Clima. She leads the environmental education workshops focused on energy transition and the gender impacts of the climate crisis on women and children. In 2024, she joined the Youth Advisory Council of Girl Up Argentina, where she helps drive to leaderships programs. And Miguel is also an active member of the Gender Committee at Jóvenes por el Clima, working to bridge climate justice and gender equity, because as she strongly believes, there is no habitable future without feminism. So after talking so much and presenting you this amazing woman, I will leave the word to Lau, so we can start the questions and listen to their experience, their work, and I believe that they have so much to say, so much to share. And again, thank you so much to taking this space, for trusting us with your work, with your time. And yeah, Lau, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much.
Okay. First of all, I want to really echo the words of Lautaro. We're really excited to have you all here. We think that this is such a great Zoom meeting with wonderful women with all of their expertise. So I want to start with the first question. It is directed towards Melissa, and but do feel free to add on to any important points that you see look relevant. So the first question is related to youth-led science climate action. So we really want to know what are the main barriers for young women in STEM that we know that they exist and we know that they affect us, and how can youth-led scientific initiatives also drive that transformative change and include solutions to address the triple planetary crisis with like an add-on or like an emphasis on gender, and how can this inclusion of women in STEM can also help out broaden this vision in your experience, maybe.
Laura, thank you very much for your questions, and thanks everybody that are here watching us. Welcome, and very honored to be here, invited. The first one, what are the main barriers for young women in STEM? Um, I saw this very amazing meme. You probably are familiar with it, which is saying, uh, girls just want to have fun. And then it's included funding for their climate research. And I do agree. Um, Unfortunately, funding for research in general, particularly for climate, it's being scarce every year more often. And it is kind of contradictory because the climate crisis will bring us to even further financial crisis, and not to speak about the other crises that are coming. So what we are lacking and we need to put more attention to is funding and directing the fund to the proper projects that really need to be paid attention to. Moreover, unfortunately, in some countries, there is still this male power barrier that exists in science. I was a victim of it, unfortunately, in Mexico in my university, um, which it was really unfortunate because some of the objectives of the Sustainable Development Goals, it's gender equality, and with gender equality also comes the participation of women in doing research, for performing research, communicating it. So we need to, I truly believe that we need to pay more attention on how we make this balanced, gender balanced work on science. And well, we know that we call it Mother Nature because we are women, powerful women that can give some good to the society, and why not from nature, helping her as well. Um, and the other question, how can youth-led scientific initiatives? Uh, I believe that it has to be through collaboration. Collaboration is key on making these projects possible. Collaboration between disciplinaries. I'm a multidisciplinary scientist, and I believe that that needs to be important. Health, for example, from my perspective, I analyze the planet as my patient, and the planet is not just made of oceans and land, but it's also made of animals, people, all the biogeochemical processes that happen there. Uh, so we need the social part, we need the environmental part, and why not? Yes, we need the doctors and science related part to work together with policymakers to address these triple planetary crises we have, from air pollution, from biodiversity loss, and um, which is and from climate change. Um, these three are interrelated, so let's find interrelated solutions together. But mostly, well, very mostly important to try to save and help Mother Nature. And I hope I had addressed this question. If there are any other points, I'm glad to collaborate. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think you encapsulated through your experience perfectly the question, which was about collaboration and about how youth and especially women need to be on the front lines and how this discrimination is not always in the face. So, they never told us like, and nowadays they don't say, oh no, we won't hire you because you're a woman, but they won't give us enough funding, but they won't let us lead the pathway or be the face of the article. So I think that that is one issue that we have mapped, and we are now like seeing women that are working towards that. And that is connected to my next question, which is from local to global impact. And it says it is for Joyce. So Joyce, in your expertise as a woman, as a young woman that is working from this like local impact to a global impact, how can like overall global actions and local knowledge, particularly for women and for youth, influence this global climate politics and governance and this framework?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me well? Thank you, Laura. Thank you, team, for the invitation and for the question. Like, in fact, when I received the question, I was like, wow, those are like very, not just disruptive, but those are questions that every day sometimes we make ourselves, especially with our sisters that are working, especially kind of in the front lines. And I think I want to connect and bridge a little bit of what Melissa said about kind of cooperating and working together. I think this is just a fundamental action that we see the international crisis is being derived from kind of this model of individualism, of competition. And I believe that for us to really have a paradigm shift and for us to walk to this transition, we need to act in different ways. And one of those ways is cooperation. And I believe that as we have been historically oppressed and also we not still not represented and not validated the way we should, I think it takes also cooperation to localize these actions. So the question brings this: we have an international agenda, so either in climate, in other areas, we have kind of a pathway we want to reach as civilization. However, we understand that regionally the realities are different and we need to kind of organize those frameworks that we have done regionally. However, the action, it is always local. So I think we have this localization process, and I think it is obviously the action of youth and women in this process, because besides being in the front lines, we also see in all these levels how kind of as well women and youth are being working really hard. I will say in the like in the last as well, the last decade, I will say, for youth to not just open up the spaces to participate, but to have meaningful participation. So I believe for the first kind of decade, it was like, hey, just open the door, let us in, let us sit in the table, let us be part of this. Now we have changed a little bit this narrative because we are still opening spaces, and now it's kind of, can you please, like we know what we're saying, we know we are prepared to be in these positions, and now we want places as decision making and policy making. And I think this is a big the know-how that sometimes we ask ourselves as organizations, as communities, on how to influence, like how I locally can have an action that it will replicate or will have an international resonance. And I think that at the moment we in this moment period, we're looking of like for cases, kind of for good practices that when we look at those practices, most of the times are local, and we have realized that actually there is a lot of knowledge, and I think we're going to be touching upon this topic, especially ancestral knowledge that has been working for centuries. However, it hasn't been valued, the way it should be. As sometimes people think, oh, ancestral or traditional knowledge is something from museums or is something from the past, or oh yeah, I work in the past, but the world is different. However, it's been, the resistance of this knowledge is still there. Is within us as well. We carry part of this. And I believe that, more than ever before, when you talk about, like nature-based solutions, adaptation, even loss and damage, there is a lot actions that we are kind of recycling at the moment and looking at local aspects. And I think that from water management to other areas. So I think this is one, there's good practices. And the second one is also kind of again, each region has a different priority or sometimes a different way of tackling this. So sometimes when we think about international or solutions that work in every place in all the frameworks, this is actually sometimes not the case. So sometimes we need to look historically, culturally, and geographically, even the geopolitics of an area, what really makes sense, because sometimes I feel, especially from Latin America and Global South, that we see this solution, let's call energy transition and others, and sometimes we want to copy and paste. However, first, it doesn't make sense with our context, with our reality. Second, probably that's not the future that we want to walk and that we want to contribute. So I think that, like understanding the context, localizing and taking, like ancestral knowledge, traditional knowledge for this global localization process, it is kind of, for my perspective, one of the key components in cooperation. Hope I didn't talk much. Thank you for your question.
No, it was perfect. I think you encapsulated perfectly the whole problem, but also the solutions that we've been giving, the local solution, the local movement that has been working, that we recognize that it is a global issue and that we have to work together because our issue is being retaliated in different part of the world. And I think that also ties into another question for Melissa, which is also about women-led science for climate action, which is like, for, in your experience, Melly, specifically, what tool or what platform have helped bridge these gaps between science and public policy, which is an issue that we see, and the global impacts of it, and also especially youth accessing those policies, and especially women, youth and young women accessing those policies and shaping them. In your experience, how has that been hard, or what solutions are we aiming towards?
Thank you for the question. Well, I am very thankful for the tools that started being done from NGOs and civil society groups that were in my local community, in my local city. I am from San Luis Potosí in Mexico, and I am very thankful that it all started with an NGO called Cambio de Ruta, Change of Path. It just all started by volunteering, first of all. From my volunteering activities, it jumped into higher ones, such as the Climate Reality Project, another NGO that really catapulted me everywhere. And from these platforms, I got to know about the UN constituency, UNFCCC constituency, Yongo, from children and youth, that had helped me a lot with opportunities, with exchange of ideas, with projects that eventually, as just like Joyce had mentioned, start from the global thinking, but needs to be done at the local perspective. So from our own perspective, local perspective, from our own young point of view, we start making action locally in our communities, thankfully helped by the ideas of other people that are around the world, or that could be also in communities close by us. So it's all about collaboration in these platforms. Thankfully, also this great platform from ECOSOC. This is the best way and the best place to share ideas, to share solutions that are really, really highly needed for our sick, soon to be healthy planet, hopefully. And well, yes, to bridge this into the youth perspective and the scientific perspective into policy making, then there is a lot of discussion, conversation, exchange of ideas. It's very important to have this communication between policymakers, between um, local leaders that are in charge. Also, indigenous communities, we cannot forget them from their ancestral knowledge, as it has already been mentioned. They are the ones who have been taking care of the earth even before us. And so we must learn from them and integrate that knowledge into science projects and policy making to have these solutions to altogether solving these problems, these three planetary crises that we're facing. So yes, once again I am very thankful for these platforms of collaboration, of young collaboration, and let's just keep fighting on it. And I would suggest find the closest local NGO you have on your community, join them, volunteer, work for them. It's really rewarding. Um, it really helps. It helps you. It helps the planet. So what a better way to do that? Thank you very much.
I love that little keynote at the end. Yeah, it really is about action, about moving forward, and also that collaboration that you said between young women, between people everywhere, but also about intergenerational collaboration, as Joy said, from the local impact, from the little NGOs to the global NGOs. So I have this one last question for Joyce. It is especially about policy. So how can this look how can we imagine intergenerational approaches, like especially with a gender approach or with a race approach even? You mentioned a lot of indigenous knowledge that I think is very important to include in the gender, in the race, and in the class, etc. The discourse. And how can we like bridge this intergenerational, local to global actual impact into climate policy and into climate action?
Perfect. Yeah, I think I'm gonna answer mostly kind of from the intergenerational, as we have other speakers whose expertise are mostly as well in intersectional approaches. So I think I'm just gonna start a conversation in saying that, as I was mentioning before, there was this period that we were also fighting as youth for spaces, and now is we have gained a lot of spaces. However, I also see that we have two things I want to mention. One is intergenerational cooperation, that I think we know this is cooperation, among between the generations. I mean, like the elders and the youth, or whatever you want to call it, which is fundamental again, as we know the climate change is a process, and the climate impacts are temporarily, what the scale of the impacts, they don't start now, they just are, intensifying now. And it's something that we always mention as youth. We didn't cause it, but we are here, we are inhabiting the planet at this moment, and we will be ancestors eventually. That's something, sometimes youth, we don't imagine ourselves how we're going to be ancestors. And that's something I also wanted to leave a question to you. How do you envision yourself, your community, as a good ancestor? And then this is intergenerational, but there is in the other side the intragenerational support and cooperation, which is among youth organizations. Because youth, as we see, the age gap is, 18 to, in some countries, 35. It is also like, it is a lot difference in ages. So my point that I want to bring here is that we need to integrate those two approaches to our solutions. And again, making climate fight, in the fight of climate justice, an inclusive process, in that we really cooperate with people instead of replicating the oppression frameworks that talk us to this problem, like cooperation and image and ego, but also like creating a safe space. And also I think as a youth movement, we need to position ourselves against tokenism, which is unfortunately a bad practice that is happening at the moment. And it's something that we are not, like, I see there is a lot of advisor groups and there is a lot of youth being included, but the question is, inclusion until what point, or until what point? Is it just the image of the person? Is it we're like saying as organization or industry, even private sector? Are we, or even government, we're including youth? And then when they take a picture of youth in a room, yeah, that's inclusion. Is it? Is it real inclusion? Or that is how we can guarantee that tokenism, doesn't replicate at different levels. Instead, we really take into consideration youth voices. Because sometimes, as I said, like we're invited to spaces, people are listening, and that's considered cooperation. No, that is just one step towards cooperation. Really thinking in cooperation is something that also Melissa said something. Where is the funding as well for youth in action, in resilience, in climate action, and this is still growing. But if we even think about, let's say, funding from philanthropy, less than 1% goes to youth. So this is like crazy. This is the lack of cooperation. But at the same time, we see a lot of tokenization in several spaces. So I think that this is a call as well for action. First, within yourself and your community, how you're mitigating this tokenization process, and what probably can we do about it. And the second question that I want to leave you is the one that I ask: how do you envision yourself as a good ancestor? How can we leverage and have a legacy? Because we're going to be ancestors. Either we don't have kids, we are going to be already, and probably we are already ancestors from the younger generations. So thank you very much.
I think that's beautiful. And like, as a young woman, what you said about being an ancestor, like, oh my God, it shocked me a lot. I think that's a great practice, like a great grounding practice. And what you said about like this intergenerational cooperation that it's been having, that we are having, is so tremendously important. Tremendously. Thank you so much, Joyce. And I want to like move a little bit to Micaela, and to her expertise of being a young woman, like leading these resistance movements and like climate action, especially from youth in her local region, her local countries. So what are like the main barriers and like opportunities that you have encountered also as well for women leadership, or what is the importance also of women leadership in climate governance, and at a local, national, global level, and like how can we ensure that these women, like these female voices, are amplified overall?
Hi, thank you. Hi for inviting me. To address this question, I would like to start by telling you a little about the reality of life in my country today. A new extreme right government came to power at the end of 2023, leaving aside any hope of implementing gender equality policies in national territory, which is why the role of civil society organizations began to be a paramount for the most vulnerable sectors of the society, such as women, children, and dissidents from peripheral neighborhoods, who not only live in the front line of the state neglect, but also the direct consequences of climate crisis. Women's leadership in climate government face barriers such as structural inequalities, cultural biases, and limited access to decision-making roles across all levels. And initiatives like Youth Advisory Council of Girl Up, I was part, highlighting opportunities by empowerment young women throughout leadership training, advocacy tools, and platforms for drive climate actions, bringing local and global efforts. Similarly, greater gender committees within organizations such as Jóvenes por el Clima is doing, can institutionalize gender perspective, ensuring that climate policies address intersectional challenges and amplify marginalized voice. Opportunities also lie in leveraging women's expertise in communities, resilience, and sustainable practices to truly amplify their voices. Systemic measures are needed, and gender quotas, funding for women-led initiatives, mentorship programs, and partnerships that prioritize youth-led and feminist climate agendas, and strengthening networks among grassroots movements, NGOs, and policymakers, while centering platforms like the CAG and gender committees can foster equality, equitable participation, and ensure inclusive, impactful climate governance, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I like your point about us being everywhere, almost like women have to have a space when they talk about gender and climate everywhere. So in private sector, in local NGOs, in global NGOs, in politics, we have to cup out these spaces and put the issue into conversation. We have to tell people, yeah, the climate crisis has a female face. Like we are all living for this endangered differentiated approach to climate crisis, and we are really seeing this upon ourselves. And so my next question is for Lucia. um, you work a lot with this realization, with this conversation of bringing this topic into climate negotiations, into climate policy, into climate conversations overall, with all kinds of factors. So how can ecofeminist perspectives also strengthen the defense of territories, of local territories, local global territories, and natural resources, particularly from honoring and like visibilization this collective experience from indigenous and marginalized group communities across all Abya Yala, so that's Latin America, and globally also.
So, hello everyone. Well, first of all, I wanted to say that the idea of organize each other is part of the break, the division of the colonization, because we always said that the Black people with indigenous communities can organize, and we say no. Yes, we can, and that's what we try to, because the situation and the reality of the planet, it's a human crisis. We say it all the time. We are in danger. The mother nature don't need us. We don't protect the mother nature. Mother nature protect us. And we call them mother nature because indigenous knowledge, because we are connected, interconnected with the land. And I became from the Mayan culture. Today is the energy of the five Kawak, which means the energy of the family, of the community, who is one of the most important values that we have in the different way to count the days as the Mayan calendar. So for me, the indigenous advocacy and the indigenous alliances against climate crisis is part of the nature who are defending himself. Is not. I always say that we are not, don't do it anything exceptional. We have to do what we have to do because we have to use the common sense. We always call to everyone to imagine, as Joy says, as the young people, imagine when you what is the kind of ancestors what you want. We always say, what is the planet what we want to take to our sons. So for me, these kind of exchanges and different points of view of the defense of the territory and the land, and use these kind of meetings and the negotiations with climate are vital, because we need to reforest the conversation for environmental issues. We need to indigenize the conversation. We need to black, you know what I mean, to youth these kind of conversations, because it's always thinking and created by the males. And of course we need to different perspective, and that's the reason why we insist to be there and be part of these kind of spaces, because they don't make us a favor. We have to recover these spaces for change the perspective, for shift the paradigm. What Joyce says that I feel resonated, and I agree with that, because if we want to change and we want to shift the paradigm, we have to change the point of view. And if we continue with the same people doing the same for the planet, we don't going to go to anyone, to anywhere. So for us, at that moment, it's vital to have these conversations and prepare for the different meetings during the year. We have the COP 13, in Brazil this year. So it's a very task meeting, and for us, it's a very important to fight for spaces for young and indigenous women, for the local communities be there, because we are facing against a climate crisis in our territories. We are living this situation, as the other speaker says. This is not part of the future, it's part of the present, and it's part of the reality that we are facing right now. So for me, this is the idea to exchanges, and we call them the trans-territorial experiences, because we every human being are a migrant, and we have to be conscious, even with the violence of the states who are facing right now, even with the violence of the borders the governments want to impose to us. Today we have the possibility to bring alliance together in a different way, and especially for women, especially for young people, and for indigenous and local communities, because it's very important to be part and recover. For me is the especially word, to recover every space, recover every word, and take our ideas to these spaces, because we have to shift, we have to change what are happening in those spaces. So for me, just to beginning, I think that this is part of what I want to say. Thanks.
Mhm. I think it's so important what you say, and you say it with such wisdom and with such resonance. I feel like what you said about nature protecting itself, it's one of the most powerful discourse, and like about like a paradigm change, as you said, like a point of view change. Like we're just this tiny like ants on Earth, thinking that we're protecting her, but she's been protecting us. We just need to stop hurting her. And I think that's incredibly valuable. And so I want to ask Mika also, from her experience in Grow Up and in Jóvenes por el Clima, how has been like this experience of working with hand in hand with Mother Earth as a woman and leading this change? Like overall, how important, or why is it important to be a woman in those kind of spaces? Like what do we bring to the conversation that is different from men?
Okay. As I said, currently in Argentina, we're under a climate change denialist government. So top-down policies completely ignored the science that study the climate crisis and the effect on communities. Terrible. So I think the only way out that we young people who are in similar context is to raise our voice in spaces that prioritize it, like this space, for example. Under a far-right government that defund environmental policies and prioritize the forest extractivism, women and marginalized communities have become the backbone of climate resistance. We see this in Mapuche's women, for example, in Argentina, a local activist in Chubut, leading by women, leading the fight against the mega mining project, for example, facing down the repression and criminalization. I think that the organization and the creation networks with other young people who feel like you is key to generate a change. How is this? Actually, Jóvenes por el Clima was born in 2019. And this is a little bit the function that is fulfilled today under this political panorama in Argentina. So I think that I will say that women and girls can change the world if they need to do so. Because in this panorama, it's harder to do it alone. And yeah, to sum it, I will say women and girls can change the world if they need to do so.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think your experience as a leading woman in this is very, very valuable, very as Lucia said, like a change of perspective that we really need right now. And so my like final question is for Lucia also, and it's how or why or which methodologies and practices can communities overall, globally, locally, can we adopt to resolve these socio-environmental issues? And how can we prioritize this collective care, or like this change of viewing that we are seeing overall in the world?
Well, as a young climate advocate, I always open to share my perspective, to share my methodologies, to share because are not mine necessarily, are part of the knowledge of my people, are part of knowledge of a nation, the Mayan nation, are part of the story. So we always share the knowledge, and this is something vital, exchange and collaborate. We always say that we have the possibility to regrow. We always say the possibility to plant seeds. We always return to the knowledge of the Mother Earth. And I always remember what our wisdom keeper from the Amazon in Ecuador say to me. Him say to me, the jungle, the rainforest are our university. This is when we go to learn. We begin to understand the leaves, we begin to understand the water, we begin to understand the sounds of the rain. And this is not a romantic, faith. This is science, what we are talking about. When we're talking about indigenous knowledge, we are talking about science who represent the future for the humanity. The Mayan people that I became from discovered the zero, and they are one of the most vital civilization for the human beings because they create a very important system of numbers and blah blah blah. So that's what we say when we talk about future for the planet. We don't necessarily have to invent something. We have just to see the past and bring in front of us and recognize the others pass for the same path as us, and they create and they use the imagination to bring something different. For me, I know there is a different moment in the whole world, in Argentina, in Central America, and US, even in US, because we are living the risk of the capitalism. For me, the end maybe. So we are in a very difficult moment, but also we have the possibility to imagine in a different ways, not only for the states, not only for the governments, also a different way to relate it with the nature, a different way to relate it with the environmental issues. So for me, the imaginate the future is bringing the past, and of course exchanging together in the proper way. Thanks.
I think you're absolutely correct, and it's beautiful to see how we already have the answers. And I think, and like kind of to close this panel, it is also to talk about how women have been doing this for decades. We have been scientists, and we have been advocates, and we have taken being part of the earth from since day one, since Mother Nature, as you said. And so this is maybe more like a call to action to realize that we are experts in this, and we have to take up space, and we have to say, I am a woman and I am doing this, and I'm doing it together to include other women into this ecofeminist movement that we're seeing, that we're changing. Like, we have to be united, especially in this time, as Mika said, in Argentina, in the entire world. We have to advocate for our local solutions to be implemented globally, and we have to have this demands of being sat on the table alongside the decision-making people. And I think that is a really valuable space. Due to time, we are only going to do a virtual Q&A where you guys send us your questions and we can receive them and mail it to our speakers and we give you back the response. It's a little bit tricky, but that's the idea. And so thank you so much to all of our amazing speakers for attending and for sharing their expertise and their point of view. I think it's really valuable. And I wanted to ask Lucia if she wants to do like a final calling for a women and for the planet, and also if Lauta wants to add on to something.
Hi. So, Lucia, would you like to give us some words? We are as well reading you if you have any questions, anyone in the chat.
Well,
Yeah.
in my case, I just want to say thank you for this reunion, for this meeting, for have the possibility to bring different voices for the youth in the continent. We know that we have difficult situations because in our countries we don't have necessarily the best opportunities. But even with that inequality, even with the whole violence, we are here speaking, and we don't lose the imagination, and our dreams are more than the violence. So for me, this is a very important moment to recognize how important it is to bring a young person in our continent, and what important is be involved in environmental issue.
That's beautiful. Really, thank you so much, Lucia. I think that the words of indigenous women, the words of women mostly, but indigenous women have this power, this essence that our earth has. And I really, really felt how you touch something in me. And we also have a question from Naranjo Esdanica Ordóñez. It says, have you found that there are not enough opportunities which are not shared or faced forwarding? I don't know if any of you of the speaker would like to answer this.
I don't understand the question, sorry.
If it says, have you found that there are not enough opportunities which are not shared or face forwarding? I think it refers of how, yes, Naranjo, would you like to ask the question?
Since I'm here, technically I can just ask it. I was wondering if you found the fact that there isn't, both in the spaces of being women and working and challenging, like finding solutions for ecosystem problems and stuff, that whether or not you've also found that some of the opportunities that you might find aren't as like they're not, you can't see them. And if not, I can ask it in Spanish if it's easier, if that makes sense.
Really, thank you so much, Naranjo. I don't know if any of you would like to answer the questions.
I just wanted to say, well, first of all, when we don't have opportunities, but also we create it. I always say that if we don't have funds, if we don't have this space, we have to create it. You know what I mean? It's because nobody going to help us or support us. We have to use our imagination and create the spaces and the organizations and what we want. Because in my case, in Central America, is Guatemala is the country that I was born. We don't have anything. You know, the people don't have access to food. Even with this, we have to build our collective with art, and we have to build the world what we dreamed. So in our case, if we don't have the opportunity, we have to create it. In my case, in this is my idea, and of course it's difficult. I know I don't romanticize the idea to make it, because it's not easier. We have to fight against everything because nobody respects us, because we are young people. The people say that we don't have, we don't know what we are doing, you know what, blah blah blah. But even with that, we have to continue. And 10 years later, you can see the what is happening with your work, and it's worth it.
The question is, okay if I ask it? If there isn't any more, so I've kind of got this idea that I've been thinking about it, and I wanted to ask, like, how have most of you either developed your own organizations or things like that? Just because I've realized over the last couple of weeks that this is probably a space that I want to get into, but more from the point of view that there isn't enough advocacy in that women's voices are important and that they do deserve to be in certain rooms. And I've just found that actually that's something that I'm passionate about, but I wanted to learn more about how you've developed your organizations and stuff, if that's possible. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure if there are any speakers on the floor who might want to answer this question, but I also want to put a little spoon in it. So as Joyce said, there are like multi-level kinds of ways that women can engage, especially women. So as we said, it is important individual action. So I think we all started from that, from like local own conscience that has been channeled through the ways that we are trying to find community, and we're trying to find these local grassroots groups that share same experiences, that work in the same kind of ways that we are seeing and that we've been working in. And now locally we see that our country is facing same issues, and we are seeing that women around other territories are facing the same issues. And globally we're seeing that all of these women and all of these other people and all of these marginalized communities are also facing these kinds of issues. And so in the end, to really start working in it, or to start your own organization, I think it's better to find this community, this collective of people that I'm sure it exists, that it thinks like you. I feel like systems of exploitation, especially capitalism, profit of you thinking that you're alone, or you thinking that there's no other people to build community with. And so like on a more large scale level, I would say, don't start your own organization, join an existing local group. Like, start by making connections with the people and start seeing what others are seeing to be able to stand on your ground firm. You need to be rooted in resilience. You need to be rooted into community. You need to be rooted on what people are been facing. And so I would say that that's one part. And the other part is just knowing and really believing that you have the expertise, and really taking up these spaces. As Lucia said, they're not going to give them to us for free, especially we as women that have been in marginalized group. So LGBT women, so Latin American women, or Black women, or indigenous women, we really have to say, oh, I know this, you don't. Like, sit down, let me speak, let me sit on the word, because it is valuable what we say, and it is important also. So I would also really like to share this to Mika, which is like this amazing activist, like youth activist, that has been working especially on this, on Girl Up, on like local organization. Maybe she has more to add upon.
Actually, I start my camera because I have to go to the university, but I didn't want to go without thinking, without first thanking everyone for being here, and to you and Lauti and Shura for inviting me to give voice to young Argentinian girls in this politic panorama in Argentina. But I can I I have to go to university, but maybe if they give me the question for mail, I can answer it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were able to do that. So and no worries, Mika. Thank you so much for your time and
Thank you, and goodbye. Thank you for inviting
yeah,
me.
goodbye. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Bye. And so kind of to close this space with that last question, I would like to begin a call upon people that are going to be watching this recording and are going to be hearing these fabulous, amazing women experts that have been working on these, like from local grassroots like Mika to like global impact or bigger. And I would like to say also how we interconnected we are, that there are people that are working on gender that do think it's important, and that we have to continue to work together, and we have to continue to try to take up space, not only to be represented on ourselves, not because we think that we have to as women, but because we need to, because we need that change of point of view, we need that change of paradigm. And as Lucia said, if we let the same people that have been constructing the climate crisis for years and for years continue to take up all the leadership space, there is not going to be any change upon the climate crisis, because it is this same set of view. And I think that I would want to end this whole space on a good note of hope, of resilience, of their young people that are working upon this, and such as yourself, and you have all the capacities to do the work for and to join this movement, this climate movement, and as a woman, and you are needed as a woman, and you are needed as an indigenous person, and you are needed as a marginalized voice, because the climate movement is about inclusion, and it's about cooperation for all of these spaces. So thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much to all of our speakers for sharing their expertise with us. Yeah.
Yes, and really thank you so much. I'm really excited of how this all happened. I think that I can say this from the whole team of IOOY, Tierra Nuestra, that we are very, very happy to have had all of these amazing young women that have been working in these many spaces, that have all these different experiences, and to be able to talk with them, but mostly giving them the space to share. That I think that Lau as well said. What we mostly need is this empowerment, but I do believe that if we do it in a place of sharing, of allowing people to attend spaces, to talk about their experiences, I think that that's the best way to understand what's happening in the world. But because who best to tell us what's going on than the people that are living there, that are experiencing the consequences of climate change, experiencing the consequences of different phenomena that are happening, and mostly who are feeling the pressure of being a woman in a space where gender equality is not normative, it's not allowed everywhere. So really, thank you so much. I think that with this, Lau, we can finish this session. It was amazing to have you everyone here. It was really lovely to have all the speakers, and thank you so much for your time. Bye bye.